Now, from the meltdowns on MSNBC last night, it's clear that the usual on-air race hustlers certainly aren't learning any lessons from this. They're still continuing with their spin long after it's clear that nobody buys it anymore. It's pathetic to watch, but it's also instructive. These are the last gasps of a form of propaganda that is now, as I said, totally impotent. And it was truly comical at points. Joy Reid, for example, praised Kamala for running a quote-unquote flawless campaign. Watch.
Woman president, let alone a woman of color. Mm-hmm. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed them. You know, I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swifties, the Swifties.
Flawless. You know, she had Taylor Swift. It was flawless. What else do you need? That's all it takes. A flawless campaign that got totally trounced, yet it's flawless. No flaws. No flaws in a campaign that led to this woman getting blown out. Amazing. You know, and Kamala refused to speak to the most popular podcast host in the country. She barely did any interviews at all. She proposed massive new taxes on unrealized capital gains along with price controls, promising effectively to destroy what was left of the American economy. She reversed pretty much every one of her policy positions from the past few years on everything from seizing firearms to eliminating private health insurance to banning fracking. Offered no explanation for any of this. But according to Joy Reid, these are all markers of a flawless candidate. Not one single flaw. So how did Kamala fall apart then? What happened to the campaign? Well, you probably know what Joy Reid's going to say. She explains that white women voted on the basis of race, meaning they didn't vote for Kamala because she's black, and watch.
You have a state where you've got a 6-week abortion or a 12-week abortion. I think theirs might be 12 weeks.
Yep.
But it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, re-electing, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy. And, God bless Shannon Watts, who has tried to have that conversation. But if people aren't receptive to it, and if people vote more, party line or more on race than on gender and on protecting their gender, there's really not much more that you can do but tell people what the risks are and leave it to them to do the right thing.
Yep, it's all the fault of white people, women. Yeah, scapegoat. Just respond to this by denigrating, the vast majority of the American population. Great idea. That'll help you in the next elections. This is the degree of introspection that somebody like Joy Reid is capable of, and if we're being honest, it's why MSNBC is probably going to change a lot in the next 4 years. If it's able to continue to exist, it means it's going to have to change. Nobody takes this lazy, pitiful commentary seriously anymore. Just nobody takes it seriously. In response to a defeat of historic proportions, Democrats on MSNBC are now reduced to calling Democrat voters racist. That's where we are. Now, what's more likely is that, contrary to Democrats' expectations, most women are not obsessed with killing their own children. Now, that's the issue here. The whole pitch to women voters from Democrats was, hey, vote for us and so that you can kill your babies. Turns out that pitch is not good enough for the majority of women. Maybe it was a mistake to make every single advertisement into a demented lie about abortion when Americans are struggling to pay for groceries. Americans are thinking about how are they going to feed their children, not how can I kill my children. Picture this, a stranger breaks into your home and sets up cameras to record everything you say and do. Now imagine they take this footage and sell it on the open market for the world to watch. Sounds pretty awful, right? Well, thankfully, locks on our doors and many laws prevent people from doing this. Now let's say someone were to set up a similar surveillance operation that targeted your computer, smartphone, or other connected device. Surely it isn't legal to track and record all of your browsing history and sell it to the highest bidder, right? Well, unfortunately, in the US, it is legal, and they do it all the time. By they, I'm referring to your internet service provider, who has the equivalent of spy cameras set up on your internet connection. They take your private data, sell it for huge profits. It's awful, but there's a way to stop them, and it's with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is a virtual private network that reroutes 100% of my online activity through secure, encrypted servers. It's like having a deadbolt and chain on your internet activity. No one can access what I do online. Nobody can use my information against me. ExpressVPN also hides my IP address, which is the number that identifies you on the internet. Data brokers, or as I call them, big tech vultures, use that number to build a profile on you that they then sell to other companies. ExpressVPN hides that number, so it's like having a home security system on your online activity. ExpressVPN works on any device. It's easy to use, just one click and you're connected. You can use it on up to 8 devices at the same time. Right now, you can get an extra 3 months free when you use my special link. Go to expressvpn.com/election. Get 3 extra months of ExpressVPN. That's expressvpn.com/election. So could that be the problem? Could it be possible that Americans, including white women, are more worried about the cost of living than their ability to kill their own child? Could it be that the majority of parents are more concerned about caring for their children than killing them? That's something to think about. You know, that might be an interesting conversation. But they can't have that conversation on MSNBC because it would contradict one of the many false narratives they concocted. It's the same story on CNN where Van Jones, as many people predicted, was on the verge of tears last night. This is a lot of fun. Let's watch.
I hear what you're saying, and I do see it differently because I'm thinking about the people who are not a part of anybody's elite who are hurting tonight. There are African-American women who know a little bit about being talked down to and know a little bit about having their economic dreams crushed, who tried to dream a big dream over the past couple of months. And tonight they're trading in a lot of hope for a lot of hurt. And they were hoping that maybe this time, one of their own could be seen as worthy. And once again, they're facing rejection. And that hurts. They thought tomorrow morning they're going to walk out with their shoulders back a little bit, maybe able to breathe for the first time and feel like they belong someplace. They did everything that they knew how to do. And it's going to be harder than it should be tomorrow for them to hold their heads up. And they're not the only people who are hurting tonight. If you're a parent of a trans kid, your child's face was used as a springboard to power for somebody. That doesn't feel good. There are going to be people tomorrow, we're going to be handing clothes at the dry cleaners to people who don't have papers. There are going to be people who are going to be cleaning your teeth tomorrow who don't have papers. And they're terrified tonight.
He's not mad. He's disappointed. He's disappointed in all of you Americans, you voters. You didn't do what he want. You didn't do what Van Jones wants you to do. Van Jones made it very clear. Hey, listen, American people. Van Jones, did you not hear what Van Jones has been? Van Jones made it very clear what he wants you to do, and you didn't do it. And he's very disappointed. And think of all those black women who are wanted something and won't get it. They won't get what they wanted. That's a tragedy. Because they should get what they want all the time. You know, apparently black women were hoping to breathe for the first time. They haven't been breathing. That's the level of analysis you get from CNN. Somehow black women have made it this far in life without breathing. Haven't taken a breath. By the way, we had a Democrat administration for the past 4 years. Black women couldn't breathe during that whole time. That's how bad it was. So they've been holding their breath for a very long time. And if Kamala had won, they'd finally be able to inhale. But not now. You know, it's also melodramatic and phony. And that's before he starts talking about the parents of trans kids, which is a category of people that doesn't actually exist. There's no such thing as a trans kid, quote unquote, that there are kids who are confused about their gender. That is true. And as for those kids, nobody on the right used them as a springboard for anything. The overwhelming majority of Americans recognize that performing life-changing surgeries on children or giving them hormones that castrate and sterilize them is a grave moral evil. And that's been the case throughout all of human history until a few years ago when left-wing activists decided to start carving up the bodies of children. Kamala's never been able to defend this barbarism. She allowed her HHS secretary to promote it and to lower the age requirements for these surgeries. How is that good for children exactly? How is it good for the country as a whole? Democrats' preferred method of answering these questions is to not answer to them at all and to resort to the kind of emotional non-argument that Van Jones just delivered. Especially on the trans issue, as we talked about all throughout the campaign. They won't even make the case anymore. They're terrified of it. They're embarrassed of it. Which is why, the trans movement now is just dead. It is dead. The trans activists are still out there. They're going to keep trying to do what they do, and so we're going to have to stay vigilant. But it is dead. Donald Trump campaigned hard against the trans agenda, actually. He campaigned, it's one of the underrated aspects of this campaign. He campaigned hard against that issue specifically. The other side couldn't even make an argument, and Trump won decisively. And so the American people have made it very clear where they stand on this. Get the men out of women's sports. Leave the kids alone. We don't want any part of this. And that's it. And so these tactics, these emotional manipulation tactics, they don't work anymore. The majority of Americans no longer respond to it. The experts don't get to substitute their judgment for our common sense. That's gone on for too long. It's caused too much damage. Maybe the only honest moment on left-wing cable news last night came from MSNBC, where at one point they openly talked about how they expected that demographic change would help Democrats. And then one panelist reacted with surprise that demographic change actually wasn't actually working out for Democrats' benefit because brown people, as she described them, aren't voting for Democrats as expected. Watch.
The electorate, right? The assumption would be demographic change favors Democrats if it's becoming a browner state. There's a bigger Latino population. And we know from Paulo Ramos's amazing reporting on the ground in Texas, just because someone is brown, just because someone's Latino does not necessarily make them an acolyte of the Democratic Party.
So MSNBC had to rely on some amazing reporting to learn that just because someone is brown, they won't necessarily vote for Democrats. Wow, that's a shocker. Apparently, people that have brown skin also have minds that they can use to think about the issues for themselves and come to their own conclusions. That's not a shock to most of us. No sane person has ever said otherwise. What people have said, and what MSNBC just admitted to, is that Democrats want to import as many foreign nationals as possible in order to secure more voters that, in aggregate, tend to vote Democrat. That's their stated objective, and it's either a conspiracy theory or something they're happy to admit is real, depending on what day of the week it is. The problem for Democrats is that not all brown people, quote unquote, as MSNBC calls them, think precisely the same way. Again, they have minds, right? And some of them care about things like lowering inflation, securing the border, stopping a DEI candidate like Kamala Harris from destroying the economy and the country. Some brown people don't like the endless wars that Liz Cheney would usher in. And Democrats have no answers whatsoever to these voters. They genuinely can't understand that despite their skin color, they're not all voting for Kamala. In fact, huge numbers voted for her opponent. It turns out that all people of all races, what they really want out of their leaders, they want leaders who will work to make their lives better and their community safer and their country more prosperous. That's what everybody wants. That's the pitch that Trump makes. We don't have to, it's not some great mystery about why Trump is so popular and why he just won in such dominating fashion. Yes, he's an extremely talented politician, once in a lifetime kind of political talent. All of that is true. But also, like, fundamentally, the pitch that he's making to voters is very simple, very straightforward, and it just appeals to people. He's saying, look, here are the problems in your life, in your community, and here's what I want to do to solve them. Here's what I want to do to make this country a better place to live for your family. That's what people care about. The Democrats had no plan to achieve that. Didn't even pretend to have a plan. Couldn't bring themselves to even pretend to care about the well-being of your family and your community. And so they lost. And now they're humiliated and devastated and left in ruins, and they richly deserve this disgrace. Nobody has ever deserved it more. I'm so happy that it's happened to them. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.